Picture a quiet Saturday morning in a small American town. The sky is pale blue, the air still cool, dew sitting on the grass. A man named Robert, mid-40s, flannel shirt, coffee mug in hand, steps onto his front porch and looks out at his gravel driveway. And there they are, weeds, thick, green, defiant, pushing up through the gray stones like they own the place. He squints. He was out here 2 weeks ago with a spray bottle. He spent a whole Sunday afternoon on this, and yet here they stand, as if laughing at him. Robert gets in his truck. He drives down a road lined with oak trees just beginning to turn gold with the season. He pulls into the hardware store parking lot, a big, bright building with sliding glass doors and a smell of fertilizer and plastic when you walk in. He finds the aisle. It stretches before him like a wall of promises. Green bottles, orange bottles, labels with lightning bolts and dead plants and confident slogans. Fast acting, total kill, guaranteed results. He picks up a bottle of Roundup, $42. He puts it in his cart without really thinking about it, because this is just what you do. But imagine if someone tapped Robert on the shoulder right there in that aisle and quietly did the math with him. $260 last year. The year before, $240. Year after year, the same weeds, the same store, the same temporary relief, more than $1,000 in 5 years, and his driveway looks exactly the same every spring. Now shift the picture completely. 500 miles east, in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, the morning looks different. The roads are dirt, the fences are wooden. A man named Elias Yoder, broad-shouldered and weathered from decades in the open air, walks the edge of his property at dawn. His boots are muddy. His farm stretches behind him, neat rows of vegetables, a red barn in the distance, a windmill turning slowly in the early breeze. Elias has no bottle of Roundup. He has never owned one. His grandfather did not own one. And yet his land is clean, his paths are clear, and his garden is the envy of the county. He stops, crouches down beside a patch of weeds at the fence line, and picks up a simple spray bottle filled with something he mixed in his kitchen that morning. It cost him almost nothing, and it works. Step inside the Yoder farmhouse kitchen. It is a warm, practical room, wooden counters scrubbed clean, glass jars lined up along the shelves. Bundles of dried herbs hanging from the ceiling beams. On the counter near the window sits a large brown jug with a simple label, horticultural vinegar, 20% acetic acid. Beside it, a yellow bottle of dish soap and a box of plain table salt. These 3 ingredients are the entire weed-killing operation for a farm that stretches across 12 acres. Elias's wife, Hannah, measures carefully. Into a spray bottle she pours the horticultural vinegar, not the gentle 5% kind from the grocery store, but the stronger, sharper concentrate from the garden center, the kind that makes your eyes water slightly if you lean too close. This is the engine of the whole operation. When this liquid touches the leaf of a weed on a warm afternoon, it strips away the waxy protective coating that keeps the plant alive. Picture that leaf under a magnifying glass, the surface smooth and sealed, like a coat of varnish. The acid dissolves that coat in minutes. Without it, the plant bleeds moisture into the dry air. Within 2 to 3 hours, on a sunny day, the weed collapses. It does not fight back, it simply folds. Hannah adds 1 teaspoon of dish soap. This is the detail that most people miss, and it is the difference between a spray that works and a spray that rolls off the leaf and soaks into the dirt. The soap is a surfactant. It breaks the surface tension of the liquid so it spreads flat and clings. The way water clings to a wet sponge rather than beating up and rolling off a waxed car. With the soap in the bottle, every drop of vinegar stays exactly where you aimed it. Now picture the long fence line at the back of the Yoder property, where the wooden posts run through hard, dry earth and weeds press up between the stones year after year. For places like this, driveways, fence lines, the gaps in stone paths where nothing good is meant to grow, Elias adds a tablespoon of salt. Salt does something different from vinegar. It does not just kill the plant above the ground. It changes the soil beneath, making it too salty for new seeds to germinate. Picture those seeds trying to sprout in spring, sending out tiny white roots into the earth, and finding a hostile, saline environment where growth is simply impossible. But Elias pauses here and points toward the maple tree at the far corner of the yard, its wide canopy throwing shade across the garden. "Not near that tree," he says firmly. "Not near any tree. Salt travels. It moves through the ground with rainwater, spreading further than you can see, and it does not distinguish between a weed and a 100-year-old maple. Roots do not argue with chemistry. Use salt only in places where the ground is meant to stay bare, and use it sparingly. It is mid-morning now on the Yoder farm. The sun has climbed above the tree line and the dew has burned off the grass. Hannah carries a cast-iron kettle out the back door, steam rising from the spout in thin white curls. She walks to the stone path between the kitchen garden and the herb beds, where small weeds have pushed up between the flat gray stones overnight. The kind of persistent, shallow-rooted plants that chemicals barely touch because they grow back from fragments left in the cracks. She pours slowly. The boiling water floods down between the stones and over the weeds, and the effect is immediate and almost startling. The green leaves go limp within seconds. The stems collapse. There is no chemical reaction, no waiting period, no residue. What is happening at the cellular level is straightforward. The heat ruptures the plant's cell walls, the microscopic structures that hold the plant upright and alive, and denatures the proteins that drive every biological process in the plant. It is, in the most literal sense, cooked from the outside in. Researchers at Purdue University and the University of Minnesota have studied this method formally and confirmed what every practical farmer already knew by watching it happen. It works completely, and it works immediately. Now picture Elias on the far side of the property, where the gravel driveway meets the road and weeds have taken over a wide stretch of ground. He is holding something that looks slightly more dramatic, a propane flame torch, the kind that resembles a long metal wand connected by a hose to a small gas canister on his back. A low, steady flame burns at the tip. He moves it slowly over the weeds, never stopping in one place for more than a second or two. This is not about setting anything on fire. The purpose is not a flame, it is a heat shock. The torch delivers an intense burst of temperature, somewhere above 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit at the tip, and as it passes over the plant, that burst collapses the cell structure completely. The weed looks unchanged in the moment, but within 24 hours it will be brown and flat and dead. Watch Elias work and you notice how unhurried he is, how careful. His leather boots are laced high. A metal bucket of water sits on the ground 3 feet behind him, always within reach, always full. When he finishes the last pass, he does not put the torch away and walk back to the barn. He walks the entire area again, 10 minutes later, scanning the ground slowly, looking for any thin thread of smoke, any patch of smoldering dry grass, any ember hiding under a stone. Only when he is satisfied does he coil the hose and put the torch on its hook in the shed. Behind the Yoder barn, in the long afternoon light, a different kind of work is happening. Esther Elias's neighbor, a woman in her 60s with strong hands and a sun-worn face framed by her white prayer cap, is laying cardboard across the ground. She is converting a weedy patch of earth, roughly 20 feet by 30 feet, into what will become a kitchen garden by spring. The cardboard is not new. It came from boxes that were used to deliver dry goods to the community store, broken down flat and carried out here in a wheelbarrow. She overlaps each piece by at least 6 inches, kneeling to press the edges down firmly, making sure no strip of light can find its way through. She works quietly and methodically. The way someone works when they have done something many times and have learned to enjoy the rhythm of it. The weeds below the cardboard will be dead within 3 to 4 weeks, not from any chemical, not from heat, but from simple darkness. They cannot photosynthesize without light. They starve slowly and completely. But the cardboard's work does not end when the weeds die. Over the following months, through rain and freeze and thaw, it will break down entirely into the soil, feeding the earthworms that thread through the dark earth beneath, those pink, silent workers that aerate the ground and pull organic matter deep into the root zone. By the time Esther plants her first seedlings in April, the ground where the worst weeds stood will be loose, dark, and rich. And then there are the mornings when Elias simply walks his garden with his bare hands. It is 5:30 in the morning. The light is low and gold, coming sideways through the trees. The birds in the elm near the fence are loud and cheerful. The soil is still damp from last night's rain, soft and yielding underfoot. Elias crouches beside a row of bean plants and grasps a weed low at the base, right where the stem meets the earth. He pulls steadily, not with a jerk but with a long, even pressure, and the whole root comes free from the soft ground with a quiet tearing sound. He sets it aside. He moves to the next one. This is the only method that removes the root entirely. Every other technique on this list kills what is above the soil. But a root left in the ground is a weed waiting to return. Soft ground after rain is the only condition where the whole plant comes free cleanly. On dry, hard earth, the stem breaks and the root stays. This is why Elias does not avoid rain days. He welcomes them. It is late afternoon now. The Yoder farm is golden in the low autumn sun. The garden is quiet, the paths are clear, the fence line is clean. Elias sits on the wooden steps of the barn porch, his boots off, a glass of cold water in his hand. If you asked him to add up what he spent this year on weed control, he would think for a moment and then name a number that would seem impossible to any homeowner standing in the round-up pile at the hardware store. A few dollars for the vinegar, a few cents for the soap, nothing for the boiling water, nothing for the cardboard, nothing for his hands and his morning walks. Robert, back in his suburban neighborhood, spent over $250 this year and fought his driveway weeds every single month. Elias managed 12 acres of farmland and a full kitchen garden for less than 10. The math is not subtle. It does not require a spreadsheet. It simply requires looking at the numbers honestly, without the distraction of confident labels and bright packaging. But Elias would be the first to tell you that the money, as real as it is not the thing he worries about most. What he worries about is forgetting. He is 58 years old, and he has watched knowledge disappear within a single generation. Practical, earned, tested knowledge that kept families fed and farms running without dependence on a supply chain or a store shelf. His grandfather taught him these methods in a garden much like this one, crouching in the morning light, showing him how to pull a root clean, how to read the soil, how to make a spray from kitchen ingredients that would clear a fence line for a season. That grandfather is gone. The knowledge almost went with him. Elias wrote it down in a small notebook, later shared with his community, the kind of plain, careful record-keeping that the Amish have always done, because wisdom that is only held in memory is one generation away from disappearing entirely. So here is the final picture, and it is the most important one. Somewhere in America right now, there is a homeowner, maybe someone very much like Robert, standing at a window, looking at weeds, calculating what it will cost to deal with them again this season, and somewhere nearby, in the back of a cabinet or on a pantry shelf, there is a bottle of vinegar and a squeeze of dish soap and a box of table salt that could solve that same problem for almost nothing. The distance between those two facts is not money. It is not technology. It is simply knowledge, old, plain, tested knowledge that got lost somewhere between the last generation that farmed and this one that shops. Do not let it stay lost. Walk your property. Look at your problem patches with fresh eyes. Choose the right method for the right place, and remember that the most powerful tool you own is often already sitting in your kitchen, waiting to be useful again.